Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back to show off some more plunder that I've acquired over the last quite a while. I've been gone, got a little burnt out, but I'm back trying to get into the swing of things. Right here, I've got a huge stack of stuff that I got from one of like several orders that I've made through Iron Fortress Records here recently. It's becoming one of my favorite places to order from. So I'm just going to jump right into it with Bury Your Dead and their just entitled Demo. Yeah, metalcore band out of Boston, Massachusetts. Been around since 2001. This is their debut demo, independently put out by the band back in 2002. Or not, yeah, back in 2002. Excuse me, totally got tied up there. This is a Sands of Times Recordings 2025 reissue with 2 unreleased demo tracks. Yeah, this is like one of the first things I think I own by this band. I might have one album, I could be wrong. But yeah, this is actually pretty decent. I mean, it's got solid drum work and good production to him. Nothing flashy, but he does some really nice double bass work on this thing. Thick, rumbly bass. It's up a bit in the mix, but not enough to really overpower the guitars, though dozen spots get lost in the mix because of the guitars, but not too often. I will say they kind of get overpowered by the guitars. And the guitars themselves have that, chuggy, hardcore style riffs with these faster, kind of hate breedish kind of riffs that get the head banging. Vocals are your kind of standard hardcore bark with some more deathly sounding snarls mixed in here and there. But yeah, really solid stuff. I definitely want to check out more from this band. This one was definitely one of my best kind of blind buys. I'd never heard this band until I saw it. This is the self-titled from Furnace Floor. And yeah, this is they're listed as a black and death metal band out of St. Louis, Missouri. Not sure when they formed, but they're kind of more of a doomy death metal style, I think, than more black and death metal. But this is their debut EP, put out by Dawn Breed Records back in 2023, limited to 500 copies. Absolutely killer release, solid drum work, thick, rumbly bass heard throughout, giving everything a good heft. The guitars have that unpolished, kind of Sabbathy, think the self-titled Sabbath album guitar tone to them. It's all about that doomy, ominous atmosphere. You get the slow, chuggy riffs with slightly more mid-tempo grooves, as well as some dissonant-sounding riffs and tremolos. Guitarist Sean Servant's cavernous growls mixed with these, pained yells at times definitely add to that melancholic and dreary atmosphere. In the first track, The Chamber, at about 2:24 into that song, this riff comes in that kind of reminds me of the song Black Sabbath, with how it's kind of slow picked and it's just so ominous and dissonant, especially with that creepy, sounding vocals over the top that sound like some otherworldly spirits crying out. Think like what Nile would use, and then that slow bass riff underneath of it. Just really, really killer stuff. Go check this one out. Next up, Warp Chamber with Implements of Excruciation. And I believe it was Kyle Shaw from Obscene who actually showed this on Facebook that got me to check it out. But these guys are a death metal band. I'm not exactly sure where they're from. There's no info on that. But they formed back in 2016. This is their debut full-length album put up by Profound Lore back in 2020, limited to 500 copies. And this thing, as far as the drum work goes, it's just filled with lots of nice patterns, rolls, and fills. Killer blast beats. The bass is thick and rumbly. The guitars have that dirty sounding tone to them. They're fast, the fast-paced riffs on here just scythe right through you. But they also get slower and heavier and chuggy. You get these ominous sounding tremolos and plenty of headbangable grooves and just killer solos. The vocals are just, absolutely nasty with a bit of a reverb, giving them kind of a slight cavernous feel. Excuse me, he utilizes, growls and retches and just very killjoyish sounding screams. Track number 1, Abdication of the Mind. About 5:30 into that song, there's this bass drum section, and the bass especially just sounds just disgustingly heavy. I love the ghastly sounding vocals over the top of that little section, and when that heavy chugged riff comes in, oh, so damn good. Also, track number 4, Exultant in a Chthonic Blasphemy. Such a fucking killer sounding groove at about 4:41, and that bass riff, holy shit, that is good. Definitely one to be checking out. Next up, you have Swamp Grave. Excuse me, here, get my notes here. With Hollow Souls. Death metal / hardcore out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Been around since 2023. This is their debut EP put out by Iron Fortress Records just last year. When it comes to this one, the drum work on here isn't overly flashy or anything. The kicks definitely definitely have a nice oomph to them, which sounds really cool during the blast beats and the double bass parts. But they, along with just the drums in general, I think are a little bit too out front in the mix, and their triggered sound which kind of reminds me of Vader's Litany just a little bit. They kind of drown out the bass a little, which is kind of a bummer because the bass has this nice, thick, dirty tone with a little bit of a twang to it. It kind of reminds me of Taylor Wang from Lust Witch's bass. Now, when you get into track number 4, Scattered in the Sewers, at about 2:10 into that song, this is the first time you can actually really hear the bass as this kind of sustained guitar riff fades out, and it does come out a bit again in the follow-up track number 5, Carnal Tormentor. But in general, it seems like they kind of get drowned out a little bit by the drums. The guitars have that dirty, crunchy guitar, tone to them. And it's all about those slow to mid-paced chugs and grooves. But you do get some more faster-paced sections at times, and some actually wailing solos. Snarly style vocals really remind me of Blood Duster. One thing I did pick out on here, track number 3, Desecrated Conclave. I love that creepy funeral bell that comes in, and then when you combine that with that slower, chugged riff, it really gives that song a very ominous vibe. But yeah, overall, I definitely enjoyed this. Next up, we have Deliberalize with Unhallowed Halls. And yeah, this is a death metal band out of Newark, Ohio. Been around since 2023. This is their debut full-length album put out by Iron Fortress Records just last year. A lot of 2024 releases in this order. They also have 2 EPs that I definitely want to check out. And I really hate to call this a death worship or tribute band, but they do have a lot of their elements in their sound. The bass is thick and twangy, right up in the mix with a bit of a techie feel to it. Solid drum work with lots of fast double bass. Fast and thrashy guitars, but also lots of headbangable grooves to be found. You get these, chuggier style sections, really killer solos, which I love the use of the whammy bar on. They definitely had that very, Chuck Schuldiner-ish sound to them. Now, the grooves, a lot of times, is where you kind of hear the death comparisons, such as in track number 4, Walls of Bone, at about 18 seconds in. And at that point, too, I love the way the bass and the double bass combine with that riff to really give that death vibe. Then you get that solo at 134, and I also love the section in this song about 207 with its slow pit, kind of ethereal feeling riff with that slow bass riff and drum beat underneath. Then when you get into track number 5, Deliver Despair, the solo at 130 really reminds you of The Philosopher. Even Nathan Spencer's vocals remind you of Individual Thought Patterns era Chuck, but he also utilizes some kind of lower end growls as kind of backing vocals that they kind of layer at times. But yeah, overall pretty solid. Like I said, I really want to check out their EPs as well. Next up, we have Iron Front with Hooked. And these guys are listed as, death metal / hardcore. To me, they're kind of more of like a brutal death metal, but they are based out of Oakland, California. Been around since 2019. This is their second full-length album put out by Creator Destructor Records just last year. The production on here, though, seems a bit, distorted or overpowering sonically to begin with, but as this album progresses, it kind of levels out a little bit more. The drums have that slight ping to them, but not to the annoying level. Kind of think the new 200 Stab Wounds album, the drum sound on that. Powerful sounding kicks on here, though, and you get lots of solid double bass and blast beats, thick toned bass. I love the bassy intro to track number 3, Burned by a Crack Pipe, and the bass drop right after the Family Guy sample in that song. Similarly, you get a nice get a nice little bassy intro to track number 6, Intestinal Siphon, and again a nice killer bass drop that leads to a nasty chugged groove right after that. Dirty, crunchy sounding guitars. Excuse me, get these up here a little bit. that just really bludgeon you with chugs and tremolos and nice headbangable grooves and pinch harmonics and some just nasty sounding breakdowns as well. Topi Plord, probably butchered that name, delivers an absolutely savage performance vocally with some low growls and have a little bit of a reverb to them. They're very powerful, as well as some screams and some bless. And even, there is a Lone Breeze section in track number 7, Slam of 87. But yeah, this is just pretty much meat and taters, brutal death metal. If that sounds like something you'd like, go check out Iron Front. Then we have Greenwich with Forced Out of Existence, which, this is actually spelled Greenwich, but it's pronounced Greenwich. But yeah, these guys are a death metal band out of Los Angeles, California. Been around since 2018. This is their debut full-length album put out by Maggot Stomp just last year. And I've actually been a fan of this band since their second EP, Cosmos Steel Blood Trinity. Yeah, this thing's just got some dirty, thick, and rumbly bass, solid drum work. The guitars are mid to fast paced, mixing nasty sounding chugs and pinch harmonics with lots of headbangable grooves, which I love when they lock into those slower, heavy chugged grooves and just absolutely wailing sounding solos. When you get into track number 6, Body Bound, you can't help but headbang to that heavy, chuggy opening groove of that song. As soon as it comes on, you're just like, oh yeah. Vocally, you get powerful mid-range barks with some nasty screams and spots, along with some more typical growls at times. But yeah, overall, pretty solid album. I would definitely recommend this one. Next up, Ripped to Shreds with Sanshi. Death metal from San Jose, California. Been around since 2016. This is their 4th full-length album put out by Relapse Records last year. And right away, you are hit with those HM2 style guitar snarls and the blast beats with little let up throughout. Absolutely killer drum work all over this album. I love the production of him. I love the unrelenting intensity of his drumming. Fantastic blast beats all over this thing. The bass tone is nice and thick, adding to that heft without overpowering the guitars, yet it is still clearly audible throughout the entire album. Fast and thrashy guitars, killer solos, but also they have these more melodic elements to them in spots with some really nice mid-paced grooves and chugs. The opening track, Into the Court of Yan Luang. I love the twin harmonics tremolo at right about 4:22 into the song that leads into an absolutely killer solo, really reminiscent of Intestine Ballism, I think. Track 3, Sacrificial Fire, at 3:04, there's this melodic riff that leads to a twin harmony riff at about 3:21, and that thick bass underneath really stands out here, I think. Snarls and roars and maniacal shouts and just low-end growls really top everything off to create an absolutely killer album. It is not overly polished, I will say that. Definitely has a slightly raw, old-school death metal feel to it. I would say if you are a fan of Entombed, Dismember, or even Intestine Ballism, go check this one out. Absolutely killer release from last year. And yeah, that is going to do it. I'm actually going to save the last 2 that I got for this order for another video, because I got a little bit more to say about those because they're compilations. So yeah, that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing. And until next time, stay brutal.